Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey everybody, it's Jessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. Thanks for choosing to spend some time with me. I'm so delighted that you're here. So part of my mission, well, my whole mission, right, is trying to bring easy intimacy to couples, to help people create a sex life that's easy and fun for both of them so they can enjoy this whole thing with zero stress. And I'm thinking more and more about making sure that my podcast episodes are aligned with that mission to make sure it's part of achieving that goal. And this week certainly falls into that category. So I have Allan back on the show. And, at this point, I got to call him a friend of the show, because I think this might be his fourth appearance on the show. And then I've been on his podcast a bunch. We're just like totally in sync with what we're trying to do. And he has a new offering, a new product. I don't know if I'd exactly call it an app. It's more like a service called the State of Our Union that he has developed. Well, it came out of his own marriage, really, habits that he and his wife had gotten into years ago, and then has really evolved into this thing where couples are going to get a weekly text of questions to tune in and connect with each other, right? Every week, and then every month and every quarter, to make sure they're communicating about stuff that's meaningful, about the state of their union, about their relationship, about what's working and what could be better, and what each person wants to focus on and grow. And all of this is crucial it's like in the second pillar of intimacy with ease, which is all about alignment with your partner, about creating win-wins, about working as true allies and teammates. Like, this is an essential part of that. What a great resource. So he's on the show to talk about this new product, this new service, go over how it works, the inspiration, where it came from, how it fits in, stuff like that. And, I think whether you end up buying his product or not, it's going to be really useful to think about how do we get some of these touch point conversations in our life together so that we make sure that we are continuing to play as teammates. So hope you get a lot out of it. And before we start the show today, it is sponsored by Intimacy with Ease. It's a method to help otherwise happy couples achieve a sex life that is easy and fun for both of them, so you can actually just enjoy your sex life with zero stress. For more information, if you want to watch a brief little training video that's available, all of that, go to intimacywithease.com. So Corey, welcome back. Good to see you again.
I love talking with you, Jessa.
I know, I have so much fun on your show, and I always have fun having you on mine. So cool.
Yep, it's a great collaboration. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to hear all about this new project, your state of our union.
The State of Our Union. So, all right, let's go kind of from the backwards to today. Because one of the things that Pam and I, so I've been married to my wife over 27 years now at the time of this recording. We just kind of stumbled on this probably within the last decade. Every time we would have anniversary dinner, which isn't always right on anniversary on May 29th, but somewhere right around there, we'd head out, just she and I, and sit down and just enjoy the meal together, right? And one of the things, there was some intentionality in it, just because of the way you and I are wired as therapists. We're never not thinking questions and those kinds of things. And so I just started asking some questions about the state of us, like, hey, where do you see us? And here's where I see, here's where I'm wanting to grow, and try to be very strategic in keeping it through the lens of, this is about me, not my spouse needing to work on something, and hope she follows along with, here's what I want to work on too. And it's all, then we reap the benefits of each other's growth.
Right.
And so these questions just started kind of materializing of, what was one of the successes for our year, for you and for me? What was one of the hang-ups for me? And where am I going this year? What's a focus, a growth area that I really want to focus on? So kind of steered it that way, and it became a yearly thing that we would just have this long conversation about just where are we? And we would cover all aspects of our marriage, right? That it would be the communication, the romantic, the household, the finances, and the sexual. And then we'd also throw in the spiritual and the heart, just some other things that are just part of who we are, right?
Right.
And so that started gaining some ground for us. And then we mentioned it once on an episode because it had been talked about at one point on Sexy Marriage Radio, which then got some emails coming in. What are the questions? What are the topics? And so we actually did a show on it, and we called it The State of Our Union. And so it's just kind of materialized to where now I'm starting to recognize more and more, and I'm assuming I can speak for you in this regard too, that with couples, it's so easy as married couples when you're working or have a business or hobbies or children or a home or, just anything. Right. It's very easy for weeks to go by and all you've done is have conversations about schedules, kids, work, and tasks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't touch base on us and our union and our agreement, our relationship and what it is. And so, through just some research and asking around and kind of digging around for what all's out there, came across this idea of what if there was something that gave you a weekly trigger to have a touch point conversation is what I'm calling them.
Right.
Where you and your spouse, you set up the time that works best for you on when we want this reminder to come, and it comes via your phone in a text message. And in it is 5 questions. And you answer those 5 questions. You find the time during that moment, because if they're like normal people, like Pam and I, if we don't do it real soon from the reminder, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll miss a week, and but then the beauty of this is when you join this, when you buy this product, it just initiates it, and so you'll have this regular ping coming in on a weekly basis at the time you choose. And the goal is spend 5-10 minutes just having a quick touch point conversation. And then the next week, it's the same questions. But then once a month, there's 2 additional questions because I think couples need to spend some time talking about how are we stewarding our finances and what's the state of our sex life. That's not something necessarily needed every single week.
Right. But touching base every once in a while. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it is an important part of who we are as beings.
Right.
And who we are as a marriage. And so that just kind of will flow for a while. And then on a quarterly basis, so about every 3 months, rather than the normal weekly question, you'll get a batch of completely different questions, which is more of the global kind of questions that Pam and I initially started this whole thing with. Of just, where am I now? Where am I heading? And so this gives us a chance to look back over the last quarter and look ahead over the next quarter of where are we? Because I think if 2020 has taught us anything, plans have to be written in pencil.
Yeah.
Because we have to change and be able to adjust and adapt to surroundings. But that's life in and of itself, too.
Right.
That things happen. And so if I can have regular moments where I'm coming back together with my spouse to, here's where I am. I'd love to hear where you are. Now, where are we going together? And I think that whole process will take you all the way through a year. And then you can just hit start again and fire it up again.
This is great because I'm thinking about, so on the one hand, when I'm working with couples, I'm often trying to help them, believe it or not, find something to talk about. Like for so long, I mean, you laugh, but so many people struggle with this. Like we don't talk about anything but the kids and work and money or chores. We don't even know what do you go to dinner and talk about that isn't that.
Right.
And so I'm often suggesting conversation starter cards or something. It's like, don't feel bad that you need something to prompt. And this would be, sounds like another wonderful resource for that.
Right. Yeah. But this is that whole, what's the joke that you can go out to a restaurant on a Friday night or a Saturday night and look across the room and you see the couples that aren't talking to each other, and those are the ones that are married.
Right. They're together for some length of time. But the other thing I do with couples in therapy is when we wrap up, I often ask them to put a quarterly date on their calendar, and they're going to forget about it, but the phone's going to ring, and they need to go have a check-in, like therapy without the therapist. Like, have we drifted? Have we kept up with what we thought? Do we need to course correct here a little bit? So it's like I've needed this without even, knowing you were going to build it. So.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is you think of it, I've come across this in journal form, that there's a book you can buy, that you write it all out. But I'm just of the thought process that more and more, man, we live through technology. We live through our phones. I even did a little experiment of buying a phone that all it does is make phone calls and text, and then it's alarm and a calculator, and that's it. And that experiment lasted all of a day.
I was going to say, it's like I have an app on this thing to call somebody. It's like who makes phone calls?
I started to realize that, oh man, the world has really shifted to where that is such a vital part of who we are.
Right.
That how can we also see it to where technology? Because this is one of the catchphrases I love is I want to use technology, not be used by it.
Right. And instead of having to remember to pick up a journal or carry this thing around, it's like your phone rings, right? Like something goes off and alerts you. And it's like, oh,
because everybody is usually quick to check notifications.
Right.
Right. That's one of those urges of you hear your phone ping and it's like, oh, I gotta reach for it. Who could it be? And so the hope would be this kind of takes a little of the guesswork out of it in the sense of, okay, I know I'm going to be reminded. And I know it'll populate the questions I need to, we'll work through. You even have the flexibility, obviously, if you wanted to tweak it on, you just kind of add your own. Because one of the components, because there's, in every couple, there's a higher and lower desire, and some will be, I want to write all this down and I want to track it. Well, perfect. Bring a journal to it, right?
Right,
and just
right.
Spend a little time answering it yourself in a journal, and then bring that to the conversation. And that gives you something you can track back at the quarterly time and see, where are you and where were you? And I think all of those are tremendous markers so that emptiness doesn't just sneak up on you and you're like, whoa, I have no idea who you are anymore. That we've kind of missed all this time because the immediate outweighed the important.
Right. Right. What are a couple of the questions you've got in there that come up on a weekly basis? If you can remember them off the top of your head.
I got it. This has been percolating for quite a while. So, I mean, obviously the way it starts is just on an idea of what's some of the things I'm grateful for right now. Because I think you got to set the stage right.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy, especially if, Pam and I have been here, couples that you and I both work with, we're there.
Right.
When a reminder to have a conversation with my spouse is not something I'm looking forward to, right? Because there's tension and it's tough and there's
right. What are we going to have to get into or face or that elephant?
Right. And so a lot of times how we approach something really determines what happens next. And one of the things of just coming at it, okay, what's something I appreciate and I'm grateful for? And it's not necessarily just about my partner.
Right.
And my spouse. It's what's going on in my life that I appreciate. And because I think that immediately, the attitude of gratitude totally changes a perspective on where you're going. I mean, there's that gratitude training, all kinds of stuff across the blogosphere and podcast world on that concept. So, so it just starts that way, and then not giving it all away because I do want people to actually get the thing to get all the questions. But then it does have a chance where what's one specific something that I can do for you this week, that would help you this week, because that's a more marriage-focused, relationship-focused concept that just makes sure I'm in tune with where they are and what's coming up or what some of their fears, and I think that kind of data and information can be tremendously valuable.
Right.
I think of it in terms of it keeps me in tune with what's going on with Pam, and it helps me be in a position to be a support, to be an ally, that I think where marriage is at its best.
Yeah.
Is when we have that, because we're both willing partners and volunteers in it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one thing I believe, not having seen this yet, right, but I know I will, is that I love knowing who's created this, and I totally trust you to come up with questions that are really on point, that are about union, that are about commitment, that are about
Right.
support, challenge, but also growth together.
Yeah.
It's not just some sort of random questions, that are just sort of interesting. It's like they have
Right.
a purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because marriage is a volunteer sport. so how do I keep that in mind in the sense that I'm choosing this?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I have to remind myself of that sometimes. My spouse needs to be reminded of that sometimes, because that's what separates it from the fling relationships.
Yeah.
That, I got some investing in this. I got some value in this. And so it is a choice. And
yeah, it's more than one choice, right? It's a choice every day, every week, whatever. It's not a choice you make once.
Right.
Right. It's something we should keep choosing our partners.
Right. And I think we forget that, right? I think that's why some nights you do go out to dinner and you sit there looking across the table at each other and you're like, I got nothing. I got nothing to say.
Right.
Because you don't want to talk about current events because maybe that's contentious, or, you've already done all the schedule and kids stuff. And obviously a part of this too can be, what do you have coming up this week that I need to be aware of?
Mm-hmm.
There can be some schedule component.
Right.
That can be a part of this too, because it's great to be on the same page, unless some couples do a really good job that come across with the shared Google Calendar and, those kinds of things. So they already have a pretty good tune of, oh, I know what you got this night. And that night, because all I got to do is just look at the calendar, and everybody's pretty good at logging that. But just having those can help eliminate some of the surprises that can come up too.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jessa. I'm just taking a little break to invite you to my free monthly webinars that I do on a variety of topics that always include an open Q&A session with me at the end. I'm doing these monthly. If you want to hear about them, be invited so you can register. Make sure you join my mailing list. You can go to bettersexpodcast.com/list. So what kind of advice do you give couples who, it might sound silly, but struggle to find that 5 or 10 minutes? I mean, because I have those in my practice. Like, how do you talk to people about carving out the time to converse about these questions?
Well, then I think it's, you do a little bit more of a global conversation on just the fact that you don't sends a pretty good message about where is your spouse in the hierarchy of your life.
Yeah.
And that message is being sent whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so in some regards, I like to pressure people in that, on like, let's talk about the dynamic, and, everything we do communicates.
Yeah.
So, what are you communicating? Is that what you really want to? Because if you constantly are trying to buy your partner off with, oh yeah, I want to, but you never do with an action, well, that's communication pretty clearly. And so I try to frame it that way with couples. And then the other is get creative with it. I mean, my wife and I have learned we steal time. My kids are older now. I mean, we got teenagers in our home, so they're a little more self-sufficient, and we're on the cusp of the oldest driving, and so we're going to be even more self-sufficient before long. We steal time by going to the grocery store together. And
interesting.
And we shop.
Yeah. Okay.
And why could we not have a conversation while going to it and pick it up on the way home?
Yeah.
We also, when our kids were real little, but old enough to be somewhat safe, I guess you could say, with their choices after they finished a meal and they would get down from the table, we would stay at the table for a little bit longer and just keep talking about whatever is going on that day. And in just maybe 5 minutes, it's not a whole lot. But so I think you can get creative and steal time that you already are doing together and just steer it towards something like this.
Yeah.
That's more relationship edifying than falling into the category of the meaningless time that we spend together. Because that's the biggest desire killer I've ever come across. Is the amount of meaningless time couples spends together. And that it crushes things. And you wonder, where'd the spark go? Because I'm not doing anything to help create a space and a distinction between us. and our own agencies between us.
And to my mind, that's way exacerbated under COVID with quarantine, with staying home, working from home. It's like people, gosh, all of a sudden we have all this time in the same space. But generally, it takes a little effort to use that well.
Yeah.
Either individually or together. It's just sort of this weird mishmash of, like not very well used time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about the fact that trying to do this weekly, and some couples, I'll give them an out in the sense of maybe every other week works for them, because schedule time, they just got so much.
Yeah. Or a certain week it can't happen or whatever. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, that's life. Life happens. And to me, a marker of maturity and growth is, do I pick back up what's important and keep going? Or do I just I missed a workout after 55 days in a row of working out. I'm done. I can't, because you get caught in that whole failure mindset or whatever.
Right.
Rather than, no, you did 55 days in a row. That is fantastic.
Or maybe in a session.
Start over again.
Yeah. I've sometimes said to people,
but
I've said to people, and you might think something is important to you, or you say something is important to you, but your choices around time and money, open up your checkbook and look at your calendar and see where you're really putting your resources. And that shows you exactly how important something is. So,
totally.
Find 10 minutes to connect with each other. So.
Right. And so to me, the whole point of it being, how do I have a weekly touch point? Because for some couples, they want more than that.
Right.
They're able to, and they've already invested and built in that, and they can whenever they connect, they already are deeper just with the conversation and kind of where they exist. And some people need a chance to kind of ease into that because it's been a little cold and frosty between them. And I think that happens, that there's times where it's I'm reading the landscape, that it's not, we're recording this in the middle of tax season for my wife. And so I'll see her in about 36 hours, right? Because its deadline is coming up for one of the extensions while we're recording this. And so that I know full well, okay, if I need something, I can interrupt her. But if I just want to touch base and how you doing, I'd love to just hear and have some small talk. No, there's no room for that right now.
Right.
Because it's crunch time. Okay. Right. That's situational awareness to me of just, and couples, I think we need to recognize that's the rhythm of life. But if I've got something that just helps me keep pointing back towards, I said this was important and this is a way I can show that.
Yeah.
That it's not rocket science. And I think that's a lot of the problem we have is we make things way too complicated when they're really not. It's just, what do I do to show, get a chance to sit across from my spouse and realize, I remember why I liked you. I remember that. That's a good thing. And I want to do this more. And so hopefully you get tastes of that and then you're off to the races.
Right. And so for people that have listened to me for a while, know that I talk about a 5 or 10 minute, I call it an anchor point every day.
Perfect.
Touch point's the same thing. 5 or 10 minutes daily to just connect with each other, not about kids or chores or anything. And so this is one of the things that could slot into that. Because I'm talking to people about, shuffle it up. You've got talking and emotional connection. You've got physical touch and affection. You've got fun and laughter. And this would be one of those 5 or 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I like it. I like the concept too, because that's the whole, our whole world exists with anchors and markers and, memory all these kinds of things that are symbols.
Right.
And that's why we wear rings if you're married, right? Yeah. It's a symbol of it to the outward and to the inward. And so anything you can do that helps you just kind of reorient back to that, totally worth it in my book. Because again, this is not something, I didn't create this whole thing. I just kind of came up with, hey, look, there's this, let's just piece it together and make it easily distributable to you and hope it works and helps. And I think it will, because it does for me and Pam. And if nothing else, I'm satisfied with that.
Right. So speaking of easily distributable, where do people get this? Where do they find it?
So my online home is smrnation.com.
SMRnation.
That's where the podcast is. Yeah, so it stands for Sexy Marriage Radio. So we just, you've done enough in this whole world of the sex and intimacy that if you have the word sex in the domain,
you're in trouble.
Get dinged with in a lot of businesses. Like, I don't get your emails anymore. Well, that's so kind of learned over the decade now of being online that, all right, this is the cleanest way. So the SMR Nation is what's the people that are part of the show and that listen or just involved. So smrnation.com. There's a link on there that says resources. It's also going to be on plastered across the front.
Okay, so easy to find on your website.
Once you find the website, it'll be very easy to find. And then you just sign up there. You'll get an email as soon as the purchase is complete, and that's where you'll fill in just a little bit of data of what's the phone numbers that are going to be involved in this, and then when do you want those coming? Because couples get to set that time to come, and it comes at the same time to both spouses. It's not one. You can't alter the time at this point. Maybe we can work in that feasibility. I don't know, but
well, but it seems like the point is like, let's have both of our phones ring and connect with each other now. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so you kind of set it up for if we've already got an anchor point, like with your audience, and that's a regular occurrence, then perfect. I mean, for Pam and I, it would work on a Sunday night.
Right.
Because that's when we have a moment to just connect at the end of the day. What's coming up this week? What's going on with the kids? So we already kind of have that built into ours. So we'd have it show up probably around 8 o'clock on a Sunday night is when we want my phone pinging. And that would just give me, that's the questions we need to get through too.
Right. Is there anything else you want to share, that you've got available that people should know about? I mean, mention your podcast for sure, but anything else too?
Well, sure. I mean, everything you and I do is all kind of geared towards the same thing. If we just want couples to experience all that marriage can be. I mean, one of the catchphrases is I don't want people just surviving relationships. I want them thriving in it. And in one particular area, I really want couples to thrive is in their sex and intimacy, just because with my audience, a majority of my message is aimed at the people that are under a Christian and spiritual umbrella, where the church has done a horrific job on the subject of sex and sexuality, on just talking about the blessing and the sacredness that it is. And so we try to be very pro-marriage, pro-health, very sex positive, really trying to answer the questions that couples have that they're not going to ask at their dinner table or their pastor or somebody else. So obviously the show comes out every Wednesday. We're coming up on 9 years this October that it's been around. And then I've got, we do a getaway once a year, the Sexy Marriage Radio Getaway, which is 4 days. Couples come in, and it's real in-depth, real involved for you and your spouse with other couples, but it's really spouse focused.
Yeah.
And then there's a book that I have, Naked Marriage, and some other resources on the site, and more to coming right now because I've used lockdown time to get into create mode.
Right.
And so there's some workshops and some different things I'm formally kind of finishing up on the whole wanting to be wanted and desire and just trying to tackle some of the issues that we constantly see people facing, and we just want to help give people possible solutions. So
it sounds like the best idea for people is get on your mailing list, right? So, not only find your website, but be alerted to when these new projects are released. So.
Yep, or listen to the show, either one, because we obviously use that platform as a way to promote what's coming up too.
Right, great. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see this thing and get it out there.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and all the best on everything you do as well, because what you bring to the market is totally worth it and helpful.
Yes, I feel like we're converging on the country from our two different sides, right? We'll cover the whole
We'll just meet in the middle. Yeah, we'll just meet in the middle.
Exactly. All right, thanks, Corey.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.